Hello and welcome to Tracking Trump on DeKoder. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Well, what a week it's been. Zohran Mamdani is the new star of the Democratic Party. He has clinched the nomination to be the Democratic Party's candidate for the mayoral elections in New York City, one of the most influential and important positions as far as a mayor's position goes in America. That election will take place in November. Mamdani pulled off a stunning win over someone like Andrew Cuomo, who was the governor of New York and many considered the front runner for this position. And now Mamdani, with his stunning upset, is going to, in many ways, shake politics in America. He's already doing that. He is known to be progressive, more to the left, very socialist. A socialist Democrat is how he describes himself. There are young people in large numbers who have come out in his support, also wealthy New Yorkers who have come out in his support. And what is that all going to really mean for the Democrats in particular, who are trying to find a message to take on Donald Trump? Trump himself has already been calling him names and has even threatened to deport and arrest him. So we'll get to that in just a moment. And how is this going to shape up the Republican campaign as well before crucial midterm elections in the United States next year? Also, on the program today, we're talking about something that affects a lot of people who are watching this program, especially those students who are applying for non immigrant visas to the United States. The US has now said that students applying in these non immigrant visa categories have to make their social media handles public. They have to actually list out every handle that they have used on social media for the past 5 years. And you have to remove your privacy settings and make these handles public. Now, is this yet another step that will discourage students, in fact, from applying to American universities for higher education, particularly from India, which does send a very large number of students there? Joining us on the program to talk about both these big developments of the week, we have Mr. David Sofer. He's a Republican strategist and joins us from Washington, D.C. Also with us is Ajay Jain Bhuttoria. He's a Democrat leader, has been an advisor to President Biden. He's with us from San Francisco. Nice of him to wake up really early in the morning to do this. Thank you very much to both of you for being with us. I just want to ask you, David Sofer, first, how much of a political earthquake is Zohran Mamdani's victory in New York City, which came as quite a stunning surprise to many?
Yes, and first of all, thank you very much for having me. Secondly, there is a lot of time left before that election. It's really a shame to see the public safety issues in New York. So they've looked at socialism and law and order, which is not happening with him. So he's got the nomination. The Democrat Party in New York is extremely fragmented between the progressives, and then you have the Como types, and then also Mayor Adams, who is the current leader there. So it's really a mixed bag, but it is a very dangerous thing for New York to have a guy like that without any experience, but with just such a radical anti-New York message to really be in power there. So it's a long way out, especially in American politics. So we'll really have to see what happens.
Why do you call him dangerous? Is it because he's got a lot of socialist views on free bus rides and
No, sure. I mean, if you look at his policies, I mean, it's dangerous for the average American who lives in New York City. So he wants to decriminalize crime to a further extent, which it already has been. He wants to, implement all these things. He's openly racist as well, which we do not like.
How so? How is he racist?
Well, I'll give you a great example. I mean, he says that, a clear-cut point is he said that whites should pay more taxes than anybody else. So that was a good example of racism. So he's taken out a particular class.
Because he says it's wealthy white Americans that are billionaires who are super
whatever
rich.
you say, that's still
Is that
racism.
racist?
Sure,
Or is he calling a spade?
Look, I mean, however you want to call it, rich, poor, whatever. I mean, when it comes to the far left, and whether she is, I mean, he's openly saying it. So, I'm, been in New York for a long time, been in Washington, D.C. for a long time, and I was independent for a long time as well. But when you actually call out a group of people, which he's done, that is, in anybody else's view, is quite racist. So
All
he's
right,
not only saying that. So
I'll take
he's
your point
a.
of.
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. Please finish your
No,
thought.
please.
Yes.
No, please. So, here in the States, we do not want a openly racist, anti-New York, anti-American candidate coming through. But he's got a chance, but a lot can still happen. So.
All right. Ajay Bhuttoria, before I come to you, I just wanted to play out how Donald Trump, in fact, has threatened Mr. Mamdani now with arrest and deportation because he said that he would not allow immigration agents, federal agents, to come and arrest illegal immigrants in New York if he became mayor. Let's just listen to what Donald Trump said about him.
Zohran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zohran Mamdani?
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. And by the way, they get about 3 times what you get, Ron. If you look at the per capita, Florida gets 1/3 of what New York gets in terms of the numbers. Why don't you give us those numbers?
Yeah, well,
because that's what we should send him.
Yeah, well, like sometimes people say Florida gets more because they count Social Security recipients, but that's not money to the state. Those are seniors that live here. If they moved to North Carolina, you could count it there. So it has no interaction with the state government. They get more on the city and state governments than we get.
Right, substantially. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything.
So this is Mamdani's response to that, and we have that response up on our screens as well. Zohran Mamdani later tweeted, "The President of the United States has threatened to have me arrested, stripped of my citizenship, put in a detention camp and deported, not because I've broken any law, but because I will refuse to let ICE terrorize our city. His statements don't just represent an attack on our democracy, but an attempt to send a message to every New Yorker who refuses to hide in the shadows. If you speak up, they will come for you." Ajay Bhuttoria, firstly, as a Democrat, how do you look at President Trump's threat to Zohran Mamdani and his response to that?
So let's look at, before I answer that, let's look at what is the current situation in US. The Senate just passed a bill which says that it will strip around 17 million people from health insurance through Medicaid. And then we have been going through tariffs, which is impacting groceries and everything else. The cost is going up. US is getting involved in Israel-Iran war recently, and where the president has joined campaign on the election that wars will be stopped. And there's a lot of ICE going around the country where even citizens are being deported, green card holders are being deported, and there's so much chaos going in the country. And the country has moved to far right, and there's the president's action has sparked racism all around the country. When all this is happening, we are seeing a first South Asian, first Muslim candidate winning in a city like New York and becoming a Democratic mayor primary candidate. So it's definitely a significant moment for our community representation. But however, and Mamdani promised on grassroots campaign on the needs of working class families through his proposal as free buses or universal childcare, rent freeze, and increasing the taxes on the higher income people. These are some of the very socialist and left policies. So when the atmosphere of the country is moving far right, and a candidate with far left policies is winning, that's a surprise. That's a thing that how the voters are behaving. That's an interesting thing. At the same time, I'm troubled by his statements criticizing Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his comments on Hindu communities. There was a protest where he was a part of, where Hindu communities were being criticized. And I'm also troubled by his policy to defund the police, which could jeopardize the public safety, and his inflammatory statements against Israel, anti or his supportive statements against anti-Israel
So,
activism.
so
And
Mr. Bhuttoria, in a way, your views reflect perhaps the conflict within the Democratic Party, don't they? About whether to go out all out in their support for Mr. Mamdani or not, because there are voices like yours who may be supporters of the Democratic Party who are concerned that he might be too far left. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a strong apprehension within the Democratic Party leaders and donors who fear being labeled as a Democratic Party is moving towards socialism, when we are seeing that the country is moved too far right. So the party is trying to position itself as always has been. Joe Biden has been a moderate and centrist, and the party has always tried to be a moderate and centrist. So moving too far left on and being labeled as socialist party, already the party is losing its image, and is working on rebuilding and trying to gain the trust of the voters and party of workers. And in that, if we put this socialist agenda, that doesn't work. So there's definitely a large group portion of the people or young voters who want to move in the socialist side, but whether the country is ready or whether the country is willing to accept it, that has to be seen yet.
Right. I want to move on to the other, big issue that's making headlines around the world, particularly for students, from India who go to study in the US. And Mr. Sofer, that is, the US State Department's announcement this week that those applying for non-immigrant visas and the sections that they have listed apply mostly to students who apply to US universities. They would have to make their social media handles public. They'll have to list out all the social media handles they've used for the last 5 years. Now, there are many who are criticizing this, saying that it's a gross overreach, violating people's privacy and their freedom of speech. Tomorrow, if somebody doesn't like what has been said about, let's say, the president on a social media post 2 years ago or even yesterday, then they might not get a visa.
So that's a bit of an overreach, what you're saying, because what this is about keeping America safe again. So we had open borders, and during that time, we had a lot of people that came into the country illegally or through grey ways. Okay, so now that's all stopped. So this is a very safe way it's a great check and balance to make sure that students are safe, because we are making America safe again. So if you're saying hate speech online, which is pretty much illegal in any democracy, there'll be extra scrutiny on your application, which is a good thing. So whilst we make America safe again, we are looking at all these facets. So we're very happy about that in the administration. This should be a bipartisan thing, because if you have 100,000 applicants and we root out 300 of them, that's a great thing, and that's about what the percentage will be.
But can I ask who is deciding the boundaries of this hate speech? Who is deciding what will constitute a violation?
Hate speech is already defined. And there's a lot of it online. So, it's not, oh, Trump's bad. If that happened, there'd be a huge amount. So that's not what they're saying. This is really going after, when you look at the crux of the bill, and you don't hear the noise. When you look at the crux of the bill, this is for actual hate speech and threats. So, which in most democracies, actually everyone that we know about, they have that on. So as our immigration got out of control under the Biden administration, even before that, we have to rein it back. So this is a safety measure that is a good thing, and it should be a bipartisan thing. And that's it. So the overwhelming majority of people that apply shouldn't be concerned at all. But if you're a bad guy or you're saying hate speech, then hey, guess what? You're going to have a lot more scrutiny when you want to get a visa to the United States of America.
Ajay Bhuttoria, do you agree that this is just a safety measure to tackle anyone who may have made hate speech, or are you worried that this could really impact admissions to the US now and discourage students from applying? And from what I understand, that's already happening.
Absolutely. The Indian students are a vital economic force in the United States. They contribute around $12 billion annually to which is almost one third or over a quarter of 43.8 billion generated by all international students in last year, with around 270,000 to 300,000 students coming in enrolled into US universities, and they support around 100,000 jobs and drive innovation, particularly in the STEM field. If we look at graduates like Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, who have gone to create thousands of jobs in the United States, what Trump's policies and administration, they are threatening this whole economic lifeline. The suspension of new student visa interviews based on the social media account and the social media vetting, that could deter the whole Indian students coming to US and moving to, already they are moving to a lot of other countries. The Trump administration's aggressive policies, including a pause on student visa interviews in the month of May, and expanding social media vetting. As you asked genuinely the question, what are the boundaries of the social media vetting? Who decides where to stop? We have seen cases coming out. The genuine hate speech, I'm in favor of that. If someone is in threat of the country's national security,
sorry for interrupting, but that's
yeah,
what it's all about. It's about hate speech and terrorism and all that kind of stuff. So it's an extra layer of that stuff. So I've actually read the whole bill. I mean, it's just it is a safety thing. So if you're an Indian student or wherever you're from, why would you want to
Mr.
be
Sofer, there are also privacy concerns. There are also privacy.
Yes.
A lot of parents are
Sure,
concerned that they don't want
there
their
is.
kids
Sure,
to
there
make
is.
their
Sure,
social
there is.
media
And there's
handles
a bill
public.
and
but
immigration thing. But how
let me
about this?
let
When
me
you get a
complete.
job in
Let me complete.
America, when
First.
you please.
Sure. Sorry,
Let me complete.
Mr. Bhuttoria, finish. Yeah.
Let me go ahead and
Please.
complete it. But that's a boundary. But what is happening is that anybody speaking against Israel or Hamas, in support of Hamas, I'm in supportive that they do not belong here. But what is happening is that in the light of this whole thing, anybody speaking against Trump administration, anybody speaking against his policies, they are also being sent out, or their visas are being revoked. That is what is
Well, that's
happening in
wholeheartedly
Harvard.
incorrect. I mean, what you're saying is
And that is
incorrect.
attack on the
So you can see it on
freedom of
the
speech.
State Department's website. So what you're
You got
saying
your
is
turn to
wholeheartedly
speak. Can
correct.
you wait?
Okay,
Can you
one
wait
second.
and let me speak?
This is reminding me of my dark days of television. One second. So,
Right.
Mr. Bhuttoria, what you're saying is that this is open to being misused, and that in a sense
Absolutely,
that's
it is
already
being misused
happening.
right now. Right. A lot
It's
of
already
Indian
happening.
students,
So,
I've heard their stories. I've spoken to them, and they have been deported, or recently, and hundreds of them. I mean, on some social media posting, which was not hate speech or something, but which was criticism of this administration, and that is authoritarianism, that is fascism, and that's what this country is moving toward. That's very worrisome, and that's what use. And
okay.
recently, he's also come up today a bill which is going to cut down the which only allows students to get a student visa for a fixed term, and after that, if they want to continue, they have to reapply. Which means if you're coming for 4 years, you'll be given an initial visa of 2 years or 4 years,
Yeah.
and then you have to reapply to continue, which is basically puts in
Student visa is already
jeopardy
on the fixed term.
keep their whole
I
program
think
or
what
not.
that's going to do. I think what that's doing already is it's moving
So
students towards
a
other
fixed visa is
destinations.
already, so that's more misinformation. So a fixed visa is already on a fixed term, right? So what they're saying here is if you saw everybody that said something bad about Trump, hello?
Go ahead, Mr. Sofer.
Yeah, please. So if everybody that had a negative opinion about Trump, especially as an immigrant, I mean, that'd be 80% of the people, especially for young people. So this is an extra layer of security, okay? And that's what we're doing with it. The more important thing is, if you go apply for a job, right? So there's a big difference between hate speech and freedom of speech. Now that barrier gets crossed every day. And that's what the algorithm there is really geared up for. So this should be a bipartisan thing. So we look forward
well,
to
I think the issue of privacy misuse. A lot of parents, like I said, are very uncomfortable with their kids having to make their social media handles public and have them open to all kinds of frankly weirdos on the internet who will access their photos and accounts, and I think that is also another concern in all of this. I'm out of time on the show today, but thank you very much to both of you for being with us, and when we do come back next week, there'll be more to talk about, not just on the students but also a trade deal between India and the United States, which may just be clinched in the next few days. So much more happening in Trump's world. He's the one who's leading the way, and we're all just living in it. Thanks very much for joining us. See you next week.